Say hello to a new friend on an old road. Take a two-lane trip of memories into mysteries unknown. Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Hey, good morning, Keith and Andy. Hey, Mr. Andy, I have a question for you. I'm trying to figure out about this Taggart Road. Good morning, Frank. Did the Taggart Road, Andy, did it go from Kingman to Chloride Mineral Park and Surbat up through Johnson Canyon? Good morning, Mike. That's one of the questions. We'll be talking more about that in the future, but maybe you and I can talk about that sometime in person or on the phone or by messenger. Hey, a good morning, mi amigos. This morning I will be kicking off a new series about iconic Route 66. It's going to be a blending of trivia and history, road trip planning information, road trip inspiration, and of course, a few of my favorite places to eat or imbibe. If you caught us when we were talking, I was talking with Andy about an old territorial road here in Arizona, but that's off topic for today. Our Route 66 series, we're going to start it with Illinois, the land of Lincoln. Then next week, we'll do a program on Missouri, explore a little bit there, and then, of course, Kansas, Oklahoma, Texas, New Mexico, Arizona, and finally, California. So that'll be a good way to kick off the new year with our programs. And, of course, we have this morning our weekly trivia contest, the coffee cup sponsor of the week, and a few other little tidbits I can feel to share. So feel free to chime in during the program, and I'll answer your questions the best of my ability before I bid adios this morning. Okay, before getting the show on the road, of course, I want to give a shout out to the boys of the road crew for our wonderful theme song. That is quite a blessing for us. And as we're talking road trip inspiration this morning, you can take a listen to the tunes from the road crew at roadcrew66.com and spark dreams of adventures on the open road.
Come along for the ride. Jim Hinckley's America. Jim Hinckley's America.
Okay, let's start this off with our trivia contest. And here's our trivia question. Whoever comes up with the first right answer wins a copy of a new book in the Life series from Quattro Publishing Group. And it's called Harley Davidson. And it's a pretty interesting little read about the origins of the company and the image of Harley Davidson racing, movie stars, celebrities. Pretty good little read. And so, if you'd like a copy of this, the first right answer, I'll get that out to you. Domestic shipping is about all I can do right now. That's another story for another day. Okay, here's our question. Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer is a song by songwriter Johnny Marks. It was based on a 1939 story, Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, published by the Montgomery Ward Company. The song was first sung by crooner Harry Brannon on a New York City radio program in early of November 1949. But it was Gene Autry's recording of the song when it hit #1 on the U.S. charts during the week of Christmas 1949 that really put this song over the top. Okay, this is kind of like explaining that the wheel bearing is connected to the muffler. This is a bit of a stretch, but there is a Route 66 connection to this story. Do you know what that connection is? That's our trivia question for this morning. Okay, keep in mind that each and every town along the Route 66 corridor has something to offer, no matter how small. So I say this without exaggeration. You could easily spend a week or two just in Illinois exploring Route 66. So if it's your first trip, your third trip, or your 30th trip, plan accordingly. And while planning, give thoughts to your next trip. You can't see it all. You got to come back again. So this morning, I'm merely sharing a few highlights, as well as some of my favorite places, and hopefully inspiring you to consider a road trip this spring. Okay, speaking of planning, if you're an old fart like me, there's a good chance that you still travel with one of these. Rand McNally Road Atlas. Hopefully, if you do travel with an atlas, it's a little newer than this one. I just simply, I find it easier to write notes in an atlas or on a map than I do a tablet or a phone. The other one I'd like to recommend is the Route 66 navigation app. Right here. Let's see if I can get that up for you. It is a high-tech version that blends the past and the present seamlessly. With this app, you can prepare your itinerary in advance and activate the saved routes when needed. The app also offers offline navigation on sections of Route 66 without a mobile signal. And you'll find that lack of signal problem often, especially in the Southwest, like on sections of Route 66 between Seligman and Hackberry here in Arizona. Okay, another recommendation is travel Route 66. I wrote this a couple of years ago, so it's a little bit dated, but it's not so outdated I can't feel comfortable recommending it as a guide. And of course, there's the old standby. Easy 66 Guide for Travelers by Jerry Mcclanahan. This is a real throwback. It's interesting how popular this is, especially in the modern era, because it is a real throwback to the 1950s. Even though I've driven this road more times than I can count, I still travel with a copy of Jerry's book. And, okay, with that out of the way, those are the basic tools for planning a Route 66 or traveling Route 66 with any kind of success. Let's talk about Route 66 in the land of Lincoln. I mentioned this earlier, but I also recommend for this morning's program that, and you can come back and view this time and again, and it'll be archived with all of our programs on our YouTube channel. But I also find that a pencil, paper really helps. So if you got one handy, you might want to take some notes this morning. For about 80% of Route 66 travelers, the adventure starts in Chicago and heads west. A lot of Route 66 adventurers prefer to get out of the city as fast as possible. And trust me, I fully understand. After all, I feel claustrophobic, if you will, in any town that has more than 3 streetlights or stoplights. And of course, you have the perception that death is imminent resultant of the traffic or stories of weekend shootings. There's grains of truth to that. But to be honest, just like with Los Angeles, I don't think a Route 66 adventure can be considered complete without a little bit of exploration in the Windy City. So, as with any city, a knowledgeable and personal guide can make all of the difference. And in my humble opinion, the best guide available for Chicago is author and historian Dave Clark, the one and only Windy City Warrior. Dave is a first-rate storyteller, and he's intimately familiar with the treasures of Chicago, especially along the Route 66 corridor. Check out his website, windycityroadwarrior.com, for contact information or to schedule a tour or a presentation. He's been doing some real interesting Zoom presentations too through this pandemic. Okay, food. Food's a big part. You can just tell. I like my food. Lou Mitchell's at 565 West Jackson Boulevard. It opened at the current location in 1926, and it's just a real revered treasure for Route 66 enthusiasts, and for good reason. It's a good restaurant, good food, great setting, and it's a tangible link to the past. It makes a great place for a hearty breakfast before taking to the road or a bit of big city exploration. For my money, if I eat at just one place in Chicago before heading out, it's the Berghoff at 17 West Adams. It's housed in a building built in the Loop District back in 1871. The restaurant itself opened in 1898 as a saloon that offered a free lunch sandwich with the purchase of a nickel glass of beer. Well, obviously prices have changed a bit over the years, but the food here is superb. Traditional German meals, original dishes, and hearty American fare dominate the menu. Great place. And if you want something really different and delicious, take a detour along Halsted Street into the city's Greektown district. There are two restaurants there that I just have to recommend, and I do hope that they will survive this 2020 and this craziness. One is the Parthenon Restaurant, and that's at 314 South Halsted. And the other is the Athena Greek Restaurant at 212 South Halsted. The Athena offers outdoor dining with some nice views of the city and authentic Greek dishes. At the Parthenon, try any of the roasted lamb dishes. Man, that is good eating right there. As we only have a half hour this morning, let's jump down the road a bit to Romeoville, Illinois, and White Fence Farms. It's a great family stop, and food and fun are the order of the day. There's a free farm animal zoo. There's a small museum with some interesting vintage cars, vending machines, and as to the food, well, the fried chicken is excellent. It's just absolutely superb. And to round out the meal, what I like is the fried chicken, the pickled beets, the coleslaw, and fritters. Ooh, man, that puts me in a great mood for travel. Joliet, as with any fairly large city, Joliet has a lot to offer. The old prison, just lots of things to see and do here. They've got a great Route 66 Visitor Center, museum, great place. But if your schedule only allows for one cursory stop, try to plan your trip to include a tour of the 1926 Rialto Theater. We talk about movie palaces back in the teens and the 20s. This truly is a movie palace. It's a fascinating blend of Roman, Greek, Baroque, and Byzantine architecture. Somehow it works. But what really sets this place apart from other historic theaters is more than 4 dozen hand-cut crystal chandeliers. One of these is branded the Duchess, and it's the largest cut crystal chandelier in the United States. I wrote a bit about that in Travel Route 66 because it's really a great place to see. Highly recommended. One more I'll give a shout out to, a little shameless self-promotion. This is a simple little book, not much to it, but it's kind of my top 10 list of things on Route 66, places to eat, stay, and see. And 100 things to do on Route 66 before you die. You can order this through our website at JimHinckley'sAmerica.com. And one more little thing for trivia in Joliet. At 501 Chicago Street, there's a relatively nondescript little building. You can drive past it and never pay any attention. This was the very first location for a Dairy Queen. That's where it all got started. Like my pa said, always better to fill your head with useless knowledge than no knowledge at all. A spit and jump down the road is Wilmington, home of the Launching Pad Restaurant and the Gemini Giant, which is a great photo op. Been standing there along the road since about 1964. Holly and her team at the Launching Pad do a great job, so you're assured a great meal as well as a memory-making experience. And they've been closed most of this year, not planning to open until spring. Man, I just hope that they can hang on. And as you're following Route 66 out of town before you get to the river, down on 100 Water Street is the long-closed Eagle Hotel. Kind of a nice photo op. This place opened in 1836 as a stage stop and inn. And it's, to the best of my knowledge, it's the oldest commercial structure along Route 66 in Illinois. Scattered all along Route 66 in Illinois are fascinating and surprising historic sites and monuments. Just one example. Consider the old mining town of Gardner. There's an intriguing two-jail cell that was built in 1906. And there's the streetcar diner that they've resurrected as a photo op out front. It was an actual diner built in a Kankakee streetcar. And right next door is a monument to Reverend Christian Christensen. Anybody out there know who this gentleman is? Kind of an interesting story. We won't get too deep into it today. But he was a Norwegian-born Lutheran priest that lived in Gardner. But he helped Allied commandos raid a production facility that crippled Nazis' work on the development of an atomic bomb. Ooh, okay. Let's move a little bit further to the south there in the state. South of Springfield, there are two alignments of Route 66, both with distinctly different personalities. For my money, I prefer the old alignment, which is State Highway 4. That highway actually predates Route 66, and it was paved before Route 66 came in. There's a section near Auburn with hand-laid brick on the roadway. Kind of neat. One of the things that makes this drive really neat is the road twists and turns through these little towns like Girard, Carlinville, Verdon, and man, they're neat places. Just neat places. You can find places like the great little motels like the Carlinville in Carlinville. Tremendous little motel. Another surprising historic site is found with just a short little detour along, if you're coming in from the later alignment of Route 66, which parallels I-55, you come in off Pullman Road and then Pony Shoe Lane. And if you're coming from the State Highway 4 section near Auburn, you would turn on Covered Bridge Road. This is a beauty spot any time of the year, but when the leaves are turning to fall, it's magical. It's just beautiful. And the highlight is the restored Sugar Creek Bridge. It's a 60-foot span built in 1880, and it's the centerpiece of Pioneer Park, the site of Robert Pullman's 1817 homestead. I've talked about Dwight before, but this Dwight is really a neat town, even if you just drive Route 66. And in the 1940s, it was kind of the ghost of Christmas future. They started building 4-lane alignments and bypasses because traffic, to get away from the bottleneck that was the historic city centers. So there's a lot there. The family restaurant, the Ambler Texaco station, which is now the visitor center. But go downtown. It's a mile from Route 66, maybe. Uh, Park at the Chicago and Alton Railroad Depot that was built in 1891. This is a great place to kick off a walkabout through the historic business district. The depot still serves as a stop for Amtrak. It also houses the Dwight Historical Society Museum. And downtown is just peppered with little treasures. Little cafes, coffee shops. There's the Frank Lloyd Wright designed First National Bank building that opened in 1905. The Bank of Dwight building is kind of a classic styling, was built in 1910. If you can get in, the Fox Developmental Center that opened as the Keeley Institute more than a century ago. There are 5 beautiful Tiffany-style stained glass windows. It's really beautiful. And on the grounds of the Country Mansion Restaurant, which offers superb food, especially pie and cobbler and stew, there's a very strange pump house. I showed a picture yesterday when I was promoting today's program. You'll see a picture there of a strange pump house. And it was built in 1896, and it seems to be a really odd blending of lighthouse and windmill. I could spend several programs talking about things to see and do and great dining in Pontiac, Illinois. This town really has it all. I mean, they have managed to sell everything on the hog, including the squeal. They've dressed up that town just pretty. Historic swinging bridges dating to the 1890s. They have a beautiful mid-19th century courthouse, a diverse array of world-class museums. The Pontiac Oakland Automobile Museum Research Library. The International Society of Gilders has a museum there. There's Route 66 Museum. They have beautiful murals all throughout the downtown, picturesque downtown. I suggest setting at least one day in an overnight stay in Pontiac. Just to experience it, some of the best that the little city has to offer. It's amazing. It's such a small town, about 12, 13,000 people, and it's just packed full of all these little treasures. But many of the little villages along the Route 66 corridor, Illinois, appear to have been the setting for a Norman Rockwell painting. And counted among my favorites are Carlinville. I mentioned the Carlinville Motel, excellent stay, but the square downtown Carlinville is just amazing. The $1 Million Courthouse, it got its name, political graft and corruption. It's like a monument to that. And quite a story behind that. I'll have to share with you sometime. And of course, Atlanta and Chenoa with its 1880s drugstore that's still in operation. All neat little things. But for me, of course, road trips, food is a big part of road trips. So let's talk food a little bit on the drive from Chicago to St. Louis. Unfortunately, the Palms Grill Cafe in Atlanta has permanently closed until new managers can be found or someone to take over the lease. Fortunately, the Wild Hair Cafe in Elkhart has survived. This restaurant rates pretty high on our list of favorite stops. It checks all the boxes. Unique ambiance, historic setting, a fun, interesting, amicable owner, excellent food. It really encapsulates the Route 66 experience. It's housed in an early 20th century bank. Just before you walk in the door, look up above the door towards the top of the facade. There's a neat cast iron bulldog alarm, bank alarm on top. Pretty neat, pretty neat. You walk into the restaurant, and you walk into the building, and there's no restaurant. Instead, it's the eclectic horse feathers store, filled with vintage books, handcrafted items, antiques. And then you walk into the back of the building, and that's the restaurant. Peter, the owner, He always smiling, and I swear he looks like a poster child for Santa Claus if he was wearing bib overalls. And Peter is a Dutch hydraulic engineer. He came to the United States via South Africa, and his hobby is woodworking. And he's responsible for restoration of the interior and some of the cabinets and things that were taken from a school that was torn down in nearby Lincoln. His wife is a South American mural artist, and her handiwork is on display as well. And I've yet to have a bad meal at this restaurant. And we stop on every single trip, except for 2020. My favorites are the desserts. Even if I've eaten, I always stop for pie, cobbler, and coffee. Each dessert is topped with whipped cream, and then on top is a little ginger snap rabbit. What a nice touch. And I'd be really remiss if I didn't mention the Ariston Cafe in Litchfield. Even though it's just not quite the same since Nick Adam, the son of the founder, retired. Man, this is a great, great place. Been in the same location since the 1930s, and it is a living time capsule. You walk in the door, it is the 1930s. My recommendation, the shepherd's pie, top notch. Oh boy, we're running out of time here. In Girard, my favorite place to eat is Ron's Redbird Cafe. Nice little small town diner. In Verdun, I like Joe's Place. Paula's Landing in Glenarm is something I can really recommend. And Gardner, now that's going to surprise you. Want to guess what my favorite restaurant is in Gardner? How about the Gardner Restaurant? And when it comes to historic sites, I have to give a shout out to Springfield, home of the Cozy Dog. The Abraham Lincoln Presidential Museum is a must-see attraction. There are immersive exhibits that almost like they magically transport you back to the time of Lincoln. There's also displays that provide an intimate look at the complicated personality of the 16th president. And that's right on Route 66, and just a short distance away is Lincoln's neighborhood. This is an attraction that has to be experienced, as it's almost impossible to explain. It includes a tour of Abraham Lincoln's home, the only house he ever owned. Boy, there are dozens of Abraham Lincoln associated sites in the city, but these two are moving and emotional stops that will inspire a great deal of soul searching. I've been privileged to visit Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home, and other presidential homes, but nothing's touched me like the home of Abraham Lincoln. Okay. Man, this half hour has just flown by, and I hope I haven't bored anybody this morning. I haven't had an opportunity to share half of the places that are on my favorites list, and that's why, again, 100 Things to Do on Route 66 Before You Die. You can order it through Jim Hinckley's America. I have one more historic site that has to be recommended before we wrap it up this morning, and it requires a slight detour from Route 66. This is Cahokia Mound State Historic Site near Collinsville. It's the site of a pre-Columbian Native American city directly across the Mississippi River from St. Louis, Missouri, and just a short distance from East St. Louis. Preserved here are vestiges of the mound building Mississippian culture. This is estimates are that this was probably the largest city north of Central America. And I understand, back in 1200 in that era, this was larger than the city of London was at the time. But it's only a remnant of, as much of the city was erased with construction of St. Louis and East St. Louis. Apparently the city was actually on both sides of the river. Did you know that St. Louis was once known as Mound City? That's how prevalent these mounds were. A lot of them were leveled, tore down, the dirt used to fill in swamps, low-lying places. If you do go to Cahokia, plan on doing a bit of walking after a visit to the Interpretive Center, and plan on being surprised because this place will alter your concept of American history. I guarantee that. We are right down to the wire. But before I wear out my welcome, I want to give a shout out to our coffee mug sponsor of the week, the Route 66 Museum in Clinton, Oklahoma. There are some great Route 66 museums all along Route 66. There is even the National Route 66 Museum just down the road in Elk City. But this museum has it all. Interactive displays, well-designed exhibits, narration by author Michael Wallace. He was the voice of Sheriff in the movie, the Cars movie. A well-stocked gift shop complete with books autographed by me. And if you're going to include just one Route 66 museum, make it this one. And when you stop by, say hello to Pat and tell her that Jim sent you. If you'd like your business, museum, or community featured on Coffee with Jim, just send us a mug. It's that simple. That's all there is to it. This free promotional opportunity is made possible in part through the magic of crowdfunding on our Patreon-based website. But if you want to add a check or cash, I won't complain. Okay, my parting thought for the day. You know, holidays, politics, all of this. You know, there's nothing wrong with humoring the delusional crazy uncle. But you know, if he's the one driving the bus, you might rethink that. Folks, you know, that's about wraps it up this week. I want to say thank you to Connie Eccles for her careful stewardship of the gym that is the Wagon Wheel Motel in Cuba, Missouri, and for her sponsorship of this program. And let's see what we've got for questions here this morning. Yeah, the Taggart Road, Andy. When we started the program this morning, I was having a conversation with Andy about the Taggart Road. I know the Taggart House is the oldest house still standing in Kingman, Arizona. And I've got vague things about the Taggart Road, but I can't find much. Sometime around 1880s, my understanding is possibly that this road connected Kingman with the mining towns of Mineral Park, Surbet, and Chloride via Johnson Canyon. And I found some tantalizing hints of definitely an old road. Wagon ruts, things of that nature, but I can't pin much down. Brian, good morning. Frank, well, I don't know where Rudolph was born, but that's a good guess. Yeah, I have. Terrence Moore, he was living in Needles for a while, and I am familiar a little bit with that. Yeah, the book you're thinking of, I think, Brian and John, is this one. The Route 66 Easy 66 Guide for Travelers. Shows maps and this is, let's see, here we go, like this. I think that might be the one you're talking about. A few restaurants in Chicago. Gino's East, I'm not familiar with. Blues Brothers Place, I'm not familiar with. Boy, I tell you what, we got to talk. I'm not familiar with those. But I'm not real intimate with Chicago, to be honest. I've spent a bit of time in and out of the city, but Auburn, Illinois, where I've heard Al Capone and his men would stop while taking vacation from Chicago. You know, it's like George Washington slept here. There's so many places in Illinois associated with Al Capone. Separating fact from fiction is just almost an impossibility. And again, I recommend Dave Clark in Chicago. Great historian. Check out his website, Windy City Warrior. Good morning, Miss Maggie from Michigan. I hope you're doing well today. Yeah, the Pontiac Automobile Museum has a standard station Odell model built by Willem Bohr. The Dutch artist, he built these incredible dioramas, places all along Route 66. There's two in the Kingman area. The Mr. D's Route 66 diner model is at Dutton Motors, right next door. Yeah, the pig hip did burn. Yeah, and Ernie, he's gone now too. Andy, Star 6 Motel, vaguely, but I can't. It's vague. Lincoln's Tomb, yes, another must stop. Yeah, Lincoln's neighborhood is really, really neat. The Dana Thomas House, yeah, that's a good one. Designed by Frank Lloyd Wright, highly recommended. Folks, we kind of ran over a little bit this morning. For that, I do apologize. I hope I haven't bored anyone. I want to thank you for joining this morning. I hope we can get together next Sunday morning for another episode of Coffee with Jim. We're going to explore Route 66 in Missouri. Invite your friends. New Year's Eve, we're going to do something a little different. And 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, I'm going to put on a presentation. It'll be a little different because the way this program is set up with Facebook, I can't look at you. I can't do a FaceTime situation and run a presentation. So we're just going to have a presentation on the era of innovation. Fascinating evolution of American society and the auto industry from 1890 to 1930. And that starts at 10 o'clock Mountain Standard Time, New Year's Eve. And join me. And we might start just adding that kind of presentation to our Sunday morning programs. Like I say, the big issue. Oh, Carolyn, good morning. I haven't heard from you in so long. How are you doing? We might be trying some of those presentations as well on our Sunday mornings. Can get a little more detail. The problem is, like I say, I have to sacrifice the face-to-face. And, we'll work on that. Folks, I want to thank everyone for joining us this morning. I hope you've enjoyed it. Like I say, I'm always surprised that everybody shows up to watch me beat my gums. And something, I just telling people where to go, that's kind of what I do. And you come up with an answer on that trivia question, just give a shout out, and we will get you this book on Harley Davidson out. And stay tuned. We've got some other great things coming up. But until we meet again next week, my friends, vaya con Dios. Adios.